The morning began quietly for Daniel, just like many mornings before it. He lived alone on the edge of the small frontier town, far from the noise of the main street. His simple wooden house stood beside a wide patch of land that he used as a garden. Every sunrise, he walked outside with a mug of warm coffee and checked his plants. It was a routine that kept him calm, a rhythm he trusted. He liked peaceful things, gentle things, things that did not trouble the heart. But on this morning, something felt different. As he stepped into the garden, the air felt strange, soft, but tense, as if something or someone had disturbed the space during the night. Daniel placed his coffee cup on the porch rail and walked forward, frowning slightly. His boots brushed against the dirt path. The early sunlight painted long shadows from the trees. He noticed the tracks first. They were light footprints. Smaller than his, and he could tell from the pattern that the person had been walking barefoot. Dirt was pushed aside unevenly, showing that whoever made the prints was tired and unsteady. Daniel knelt down and touched the soil. It was still a little loose, meaning the tracks were fresh. He stood and looked toward the small shed at the end of the garden, the one he used for storing tools. Something moved there. Just a small shift of shadow, but enough to make his heartbeat rise. Daniel walked slowly, not wanting to scare whoever or whatever might be hiding. When he reached the shed, he placed his hand on the door, paused, and then gently pushed it open. At first he thought the shed was empty. Then his eyes adjusted, and he saw her. A woman sat curled in the corner, half hidden behind the old wooden barrels. Her long black hair was tangled around her shoulders, her dress dusty and torn at the hem. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from lack of sleep, her lips dry from thirst. Even in the dim light, Daniel could see she was shaking. She lifted her head slightly. Startled but too weak to run, Daniel froze. He didn't want to frighten her. He didn't want to step too close. He simply stood there with his hands open, showing he meant no harm. "It's all right," he said softly. "You're safe. I just didn't expect anyone here." The woman didn't speak. Her dark eyes studied him, carefully, cautious, afraid, but also hopeful in a strange way, as if she wanted to believe him but wasn't sure she could. Daniel noticed something else. The way she held her shawl tightly around herself, almost like a shield. It wasn't anger or guilt in her expression, it was fear. Real fear. He took one small step back to show respect. "I'm not going to hurt you. You look tired and hungry." Still, she didn't answer. Daniel thought for a moment. Maybe she didn't trust him yet. Maybe she couldn't understand him fully. Or maybe she had been through something that took away her ability to speak freely. He slowly placed a small canteen of water on the floor, near the doorway, and stepped back. "Here, you can drink. You don't have to say anything." For a long moment, the woman didn't move. She just stared at the canteen then. Carefully, she reached out, lifted it with trembling hands, and took a small sip. Her shoulders relaxed just a little, enough for Daniel to feel a small wave of relief. At least she didn't think he was a threat now. After drinking more water, she lowered the canteen and hesitated before finally speaking. "My name." Her voice was soft, hoarse. "My name is Naya." Daniel nodded gently. "I'm Daniel." For a moment, the shed was quiet again, filled only with the faint sound of birds outside. Naya looked down at her hands, then back at him, as if deciding whether to reveal more. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know where else to go." "You don't need to apologize," Daniel said calmly. "You're safe here." Naya swallowed hard, her eyes softening. "I had to run," she said, voice unsteady. "I had to leave my people. I couldn't stay." Daniel listened silently. He didn't push her for more. He could see she was still struggling, tired to the bone. After a few breaths, she continued on her own. "My husband died last winter." Her words carried deep sorrow. "After he was gone, some in the camp said I must join another family. I said no, but they didn't want to listen. I didn't want to belong to anyone. So I left when the night was dark. I walked until my legs hurt. I hid in trees. I had no food. Yesterday I saw your garden and thought," she looked down in shame, "I thought maybe there was a place to rest." Daniel's heart tightened. Her story was painful, but honest. She wasn't a thief or a troublemaker, just a woman running for her freedom and safety. "You did the right thing by coming here," he said gently. "No one will bother you." She looked at him with disbelief, as if she hadn't expected kindness from a stranger. Her eyes filled with a soft, quiet gratitude. Daniel cleared his throat and stepped outside. "Hold on. I'll bring something to eat. You stay here and rest." She nodded once, still cautious, but no longer trembling. A few minutes later, Daniel returned with bread, a bowl of warm soup, and a blanket. He placed them near the door, giving her space. She reached for the food slowly, as though she was scared it might disappear. When she tasted the soup, tears almost appeared in her eyes. It had probably been days since she had a proper meal. Daniel didn't say anything about the tears. He just stood quietly outside the shed, watching the garden. He wanted to give her dignity, not make her feel embarrassed. After she finished eating, Naya wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and finally came a little closer to the doorway. She didn't step outside. She still looked nervous, but she wasn't hiding in the dark corner anymore. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome." Daniel replied simply. Naya hesitated before speaking again. "If you want me to leave, I can go when the sun sets." "I don't want to bring trouble to your home." "You don't have to leave," Daniel said. "Not tonight. You're weak and you need rest. You can stay in the shed. I won't tell anyone you're here." She lowered her head, touched by his kindness. "Why are you helping me?" Daniel gave a small, almost shy smile. "Because someone should. Because you need it. And because it's the right thing to do." Naya closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were calmer. The rest of the day passed quietly. Daniel worked in the garden, making sure he stayed far enough away to give her comfort, but close enough to know she was still there and safe. Naya watched him through the doorway at times, curious. She saw how respectfully he treated the land, how his hands moved gently among the plants. She saw that he was patient, steady, and honest in his movements. She realized he wasn't dangerous. He wasn't a man who wanted to take something from her. He was simply a kind neighbor who lived alone and cared too much to let someone suffer on his land. As the afternoon sun stretched across the horizon, Lamel brought her another meal. This time, she accepted it with more confidence. "You can lock the shed door from inside," he said softly. "It will keep you warm at night." Naya nodded. "And tomorrow?" she asked. "Tomorrow we will see," Daniel replied. "One day at a time." Night fell slowly. The sky turned deep blue, and the stars appeared one by one. Daniel lit a small lantern outside to guide her if she needed anything, then returned to his home. Inside the shed, Naya lay on the blanket, listening to the peaceful sounds of the night. She had spent many nights in fear, scared of every shadow and sound, but tonight felt different. Safe, warm, human. She thought about Daniel's calm voice, his gentle steps, the way he respected her silence. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope she whispered a quiet prayer of thanks before closing her eyes. In the house nearby, Daniel sat by his window looking toward the shed. He didn't know Naya well yet. He didn't know what dangers might follow her. But he knew one thing strongly and clearly: he couldn't let an innocent woman face the world alone. And so, without saying it out loud, he made a silent promise to protect her at least until she could stand on her own again. The stars continued to glow above, and the night wrapped the garden in quiet peace. It was the beginning of something neither of them expected. Something fragile, something hopeful, something new. Naya woke up with the soft light of morning touching the shed walls. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Her mind still held shadows of the long journey, the cold nights, and the fear of being found. But then she heard a quiet sound outside, the steady, calm footsteps of Daniel tending to his garden. Only then did her heart beat slow. She was still safe. She sat up slowly, stretching her arms. Her body still ached, but the blanket Daniel gave her had kept her warm through the night. It felt strange to sleep without fear chasing her dreams. Strange, but comforting. Outside, Daniel placed a small tray of breakfast near the shed door. He didn't knock, didn't call her name, and didn't force her to come out. He simply set it down and returned to watering the plants. Naya watched him through the small gap in the door. She saw the quiet patience in his movements. Didn't look toward the shed at all. It's giving her full privacy. Only when he walked to the far side of the garden did she step outside, pick up the tray, and return inside again. The warm bread and tea made her feel stronger. After finishing the meal, she stood by the doorway, gathering courage. Then she called softly, "Daniel." He looked up, surprised but gentle. Good morning," she replied, clutching the blanket around her shoulders like armor. "Thank you for everything." "You're welcome," he said simply. "Do you feel a little better?" She nodded. "Yes, much better." Daniel wiped his hands on his trousers. "If you want, you can sit outside for a while. The sun is warm today. No one comes near this place in the morning." Naya hesitated, then slowly stepped out. The sunlight touched her skin, and she breathed deeply. It was the first peaceful morning she had felt in months. Daniel stayed a respectful distance away. He didn't stare or study her, simply worked on the plants, letting her take in the fresh air. After a few minutes, Naya spoke again. "I want to help you. I don't want to sit and do nothing." Daniel shook his head. "You don't need to do anything." "You're resting." "I want to," she insisted gently. "Work makes my mind calm." He understood that, so he handed her a small watering can, very lightweight. "You can water the young plants. Only if you feel strong enough." Naya gave a soft smile, her first real smile since she arrived. "I can do that." For the next hour, they worked quietly together. She moved slowly between the rows of plants, her steps careful but steady. Sometimes she glanced at Daniel, noticing how he moved with calm focus. She appreciated that he did not ask her many questions. He did not treat her like a burden, simply worked beside her like a partner in silence. When the sun climbed higher, Daniel suggested she rest. They both sat on the porch steps, not too close, not too far. Naya looked out at the land stretching beyond the garden. "You live alone?" she asked softly. "Yes," Daniel replied. "It's peaceful. I like the quiet. Don't you feel lonely?" He looked at the sky for a moment. "Sometimes, but I learned to live with it." Naya lowered her eyes. "I know that feeling too." Daniel didn't ask about her grief or her past. But slowly, gently, she began telling him more. After her husband died, she had tried to stay strong. She had worked harder, helped the older women in her camp, and tried to keep her small home in order. But some men in the group believed a widow should not live alone. They said she must be taken into another family for safety. They said it was tradition, but it was not safety, she whispered. It was control. Daniel listened without interrupting. "I told them no," she continued. "But a few of them did not accept my answer. They tried to pressure me. I felt trapped. They said they would decide for me. So I waited until everyone slept and left quietly. I did not look back." Daniel felt a heaviness in his chest. He respected her courage deeply. It wasn't easy for anyone to walk away from their whole world. "You did what you had to do," he said quietly. "I'm glad you made it here." Naya looked up at him, her eyes soft. She appreciated that he didn't judge her, didn't treat her like someone who caused trouble. He spoke to her like an equal, like a person whose choices mattered. The afternoon passed calmly. Daniel brought her clean water so she could wash her face and hands. She used the garden path to dry her hair in the sun. She felt human again, not just a runaway hiding in the dark. But the calm didn't last long. Before sunset, Daniel walked into town to buy some supplies. Naya stayed hidden inside the shed, though she wanted to explore the garden more. She remembered what he said. Some people in town were asking about a runaway woman. She couldn't risk being seen. When Daniel returned, his expression was more serious than usual. Naya noticed immediately. "What happened?" He placed the supplies down quietly. "Two strangers came to town. They asked the shopkeeper if anyone had seen a woman traveling alone." Her face paled. "Did he tell them anything?" "No," Daniel said firmly. He didn't know anything. And even if he knew, he wouldn't say. Naya held the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Her hands trembled slightly. They're looking for me. Daniel nodded once. It seemed so. She lowered her eyes to the floor. Then I can't stay here. If they find me, they won't, Daniel said steadily. I won't let them. Naya looked up, startled, spoke with a calm, solid certainty that settled her shaking heart. Daniel walked to the shed door and looked inside. It's not safe for you here anymore. If they search the gardens or walk close, they might see you. She swallowed. Where can I go? Daniel hesitated before answering. Inside the house. Naya's breath caught. Your house? It's the safest place, he explained. No one will check inside without reason. You can stay in the spare room. You will be safe there. Naya looked uncertain, almost scared of the idea. I don't want to cause you trouble. You're not causing trouble, he said gently. You need protection. That's all. But people will talk, she whispered. Daniel shook his head. Not if we're careful. And even if they do, I don't care. Your safety matters more. There was silence for a moment. Naya looked at the ground, thinking. Then slowly she nodded. I trust you, she said simply. That was all Daniel needed to hear. He guided her into the house after the sun dipped low. They moved quickly, but quietly. Daniel checked to make sure no one in town could see them from far away. Once inside, he locked the door gently. Naya looked around the small home. It was simple, but warm. Small kitchen, a wooden table, a few shelves with books, and a tidy living space. Everything smelled like clean wood and earth. Daniel led her to the spare room. You can stay here, he said. No one uses this room. The room had a small bed, a lantern, and a window facing the back fields. Naya touched the blanket on the bed, feeling its softness. This is too much kindness, she whispered. It's not, Daniel said. It's necessary. She looked up at him, her eyes full of quiet gratitude. Thank you, Daniel. He smiled softly. Get some rest. I'll bring you dinner soon. For the next few days, they lived quietly. Naya stayed inside the house, helping clean and organizing the cupboards when she felt strong enough. She prepared simple meals when Daniel worked outside, leaving them on the table without calling him. She didn't want to disturb his work. Daniel returned the kindness. He brought her fresh clothes he bought from a nearby trading post. He fixed the window in her room so the cold wind wouldn't slip in. He left small notes outside her door, reminding her she was safe. Their bond grew without effort. One evening, while she was washing dishes, she asked him softly, Why are you doing all this for me? Daniel dried his hands on a towel. Because you needed someone, he replied, and I was here. Most people wouldn't risk themselves, she said gently. Maybe, Daniel admitted, but I guess. I don't like seeing good people suffer. Naya looked away, her eyes warm. She had lost so much. Yet somehow she had found a place where she was treated with respect, something she thought she would never see again. Outside, the wind carried the scent of pine trees. The house felt safe, wrapped in quiet evening light. But neither of them knew that the strangers asking about Naya had not left town yet. They were still somewhere nearby, waiting, watching. And Daniel knew he had to prepare for whatever came next. The days passed slowly but peacefully in Daniel's quiet house. Naya settled into a routine like chores, warming meals, reading old books Daniel had kept from his youth, and sometimes simply watching the evening light fall across the fields. She still stayed away from the windows during busy hours. But inside the home, she moved with a calm that had returned to her after many weeks of fear. Daniel noticed the change in her. The tension in her shoulders had eased. Her footsteps were no longer frightened or hurried. She spoke more freely, asked gentle questions about town life, and even smiled quietly at small things. Like the way sunlight made the kitchen floor warm. But although they tried to build a peaceful rhythm, the world outside still held danger. The strangers, 2 men dressed in rough coats, were still in town. They appeared at the trading post often, asking casual questions. The shopkeeper, Henry, always kept his answers vague, but he sent Daniel signals when the men were near. Henry was a loyal friend. He didn't need explanations to know Daniel was protecting someone. One late morning, Henry sent a young boy to Daniel with a short message. They asked again, "Be careful." Daniel read the note quietly at the porch. He didn't want to worry Naya, but he knew he had to act soon. She couldn't live hidden forever. If the men found any sign of her, they might cause trouble not just for her, but for anyone helping her. When he returned inside, Naya was grinding herbs near the table. She sensed something in his expression the moment he stepped in. "Something has happened," she said gently. Daniel placed the note on the table. "They're still looking for you," he admitted. "They haven't given up." Naya's hands paused. She didn't panic, but her calm expression faded slightly. "They won't stop easily," she whispered. "One of the men. He wanted to decide my future after my husband died. He believed he had a right to do that." Daniel felt a quiet anger rise inside him, but he didn't show it. Instead, he sat across from her and spoke softly. "You don't belong to anyone," he said. "You deserve your own life." Aja looked down at her hands. "I don't want to bring danger to your home." "You're not," he replied. "Danger was already in the world. You only brought honesty and peace." She looked up, surprised by his words. His voice carried a steady belief that she had not heard from anyone in a long time. Daniel leaned back and thought for a moment. "We need a plan. Something that keeps you safe in the long term." Naya nodded slowly. "I can leave when the night is dark again. I don't want to cause you more trouble." Daniel shook his head immediately. "Leaving alone is too dangerous. And you shouldn't have to run for the rest of your life." Naya exhaled. "Then what can we do?" Daniel tapped his fingers gently on the table, an old habit when he was thinking deeply. "You need a new start. A new identity. Something that lets you live freely without being hunted." Naya listened carefully, trusting him more than she ever expected to trust anyone again. "There's someone in town who can help," Daniel continued. "Henry the shopkeeper. He knows almost everyone and can tell people that you're a newcomer from another settlement, maybe someone looking for work." Naya's eyebrows lifted. "Would he do that?" "He already knows something is going on," Daniel said, "and he hasn't said a word. He'll help." Naya's eyes softened. "You trust him?" "I do," Daniel replied. "He's honest." Naya thought about it. Living openly again felt like a dream, something she never believed would be possible. But Daniel spoke with calm certainty, and she had learned to believe him. She had survived because of him. "Then I will try," she said. "I want a new life, not a life of running." Daniel smiled gently. "Good." The next day, Daniel visited Henry early in the morning. He explained the situation in quiet. Careful words not revealing every detail, but enough for Henry to understand the seriousness. Henry listened, eyes widening slightly. Then he nodded. "I'll help her," the shopkeeper said firmly. "There's a woman in town who needs an assistant at her sewing shop. She's kind. She won't ask difficult questions." Daniel felt a deep relief. "Thank you, but be careful," Henry added. "Those men were asking too many questions yesterday. They're planning to check houses near the woods soon." Daniel's jaw tightened. "They won't find anything here." He returned home with a new urgency in his step. Inside, Naya was quietly mending a tear in one of his shirts. She looked up immediately when she saw his expression. "They're planning to search." Daniel said nay froze, thread still in her hand. "We need to move now," he continued. "Today." Naya placed the shirt aside, her heart beating quickly, but her eyes steady. "What should I do?" "I'll take you to the sewing shop," Daniel said. "Henry arranged it. You'll start as a helper. From today, your story is simple. You are a newcomer from a far settlement looking for honest work. No one will question it." "And the men?" "I'll handle them," Daniel replied. "But they might follow," she said. "They won't," he promised calmly. "Not when the town sees you living like everyone else." She stood quietly for a moment, absorbing everything. Then she said in a soft, steady voice, "I trust you." Daniel, those 4 words carried the weight of everything she had endured, and everything she hoped for. By afternoon, Naya stepped out of the house with Daniel for the first time. She wore a simple dress Daniel had bought for her and a clean shawl. Her hair was brushed neatly, and she held herself with quiet dignity. They walked along the back path toward the sewing shop, avoiding the busy streets. Daniel walked a step behind her at times, making sure she felt protected without feeling watched. The sewing shop stood at the edge of town. Run by a warm woman named Mrs. Ellen, she opened the door with a smile. "This must be the young woman Henry told me about," she said kindly. "Come in, child." Naya stepped inside hesitantly, looking around at the colorful fabrics hanging on the walls. The sight of them comforted her somehow. Mrs. Ellen touched her shoulder gently. "You can start today. I need help with stitching and sorting fabrics. You'll earn honest pay." Naya nodded, her voice quiet. "Thank you." Daniel watched from near the doorway. She looked calm, almost peaceful, as she touched the soft fabrics. Seeing her stand in the warm shop light made something in his chest relax. This was what she deserved: safety, respect, a real place in the world. Before leaving, Daniel spoke softly to her. "I'll be nearby if you need anything." Naya gave him a small, grateful smile. "I'll be fine." Daniel stepped out and walked back toward town. His face held the calm look he always carried, but inside he was alert. He needed to stay strong today. As he expected, the strangers soon arrived at his home while he was standing by the gate. They looked irritated, restless. "We're searching the houses," one of them said bluntly. "Seen a woman around here?" Daniel shook his head calmly. "No one's been here." They examined him for a moment, trying to read his expression, but Daniel was a man who rarely showed anything on his face. His eyes remained steady, his voice simple, his posture relaxed. After a tense silence, the men left. Heading toward another home, Daniel exhaled slowly. Naya was safe. That was all that mattered. Weeks passed. Naya settled into her new job with surprising ease. Mrs. Ellen grew fond of her quickly, appreciating her quiet focus and gentle nature. Townspeople began to greet her kindly when she stepped out to buy thread or fabric. Daniel saw her smile more often now. She returned home in the evenings with stories about the shop's small stories. Warm stories. Stories that made life feel normal again. They cooked simple dinners together. They repaired the garden shed. They sat outside on quiet evenings, watching the sky change colors. Their bond grew naturally, without hurried words or declarations. It grew in the silent moments, in the shared tasks, in small glances filled with trust. One evening, after a long day, Naya stood in the garden, looking at the plants she had watered weeks ago. Daniel walked up beside her. "This garden saved me," she said softly. Daniel looked at her. "No, you saved yourself. I just gave you a place to rest." Naya smiled gently. "Maybe, but your kindness helped me breathe again." Daniel felt warmth rise in his chest. "I'm glad you're here." She turned toward him, her eyes soft. "I'm glad I found your house that night." They stood together in the sinking light, surrounded by the quiet whisper of leaves. The world felt peaceful for the first time in a long while. Naya was no longer a runaway. She was no longer hiding. She was building a new life, and Daniel, the quiet man who lived alone for so long, had found someone who made his days feel less empty as the last light of evening touched the garden. They began planting new seeds together side by side. Not as strangers, not as rescuer and runaway, but as to people who had found a safe place in each other's presence. Their new life had begun.